whispers crawl beneath the skin, a shadow's grin.
The package arrives on a Tuesday, which Dr. Mira Castellan will later think is darkly appropriate, given that Tuesday is named for Tyr, the god who sacrificed his hand to bind the wolf Fenrir. Though at the moment she opens the padded envelope, sitting in her kitchen with cold coffee and the morning light making dusty columns through her window, she doesn't think about binding or sacrifice at all. She thinks about the papyrus. It's smaller than she expected, perhaps 6 inches by 4, mounted in a conservation frame, the edges blackened and curled. The Aramaic script is pristine, too pristine, written in a hand so steady it looks printed rather than penned. She's been studying dead languages for 23 years, has held fragments of the Nag Hammadi codices, has translated Sumerian administrative tablets that cataloged beer rations from 4,000 years ago. She knows old writing. This shouldn't look this clean. Her phone buzzes. An email from the Foundation, the Caliste Trust, the people who sent the fragment. Subject line, ready to begin. She hasn't even confirmed she'll do it yet. The terms were unusual: translate the fragment live, stream to their platform, provide running commentary on her process. They called it radical academic transparency. Her university called it a publicity stunt, but approved it because the grant money was substantial and came with no strings except the live translation requirement. Mira opens her laptop. The streaming software is already installed. She'd done that last night in a fit of insomnia and curiosity. The Caliste Trust's technician, a man named Peter who spoke in the flat affect of someone reading from a script, had walked her through the setup. Her studio, really just her home office with better lighting, looks almost professional through the webcam. Books lining the walls, her diplomas visible but not ostentatious. A small icon of Saint Jerome, patron of translators, that her mother gave her decades ago. She positions the papyrus fragment on the desk, adjusts the document camera. The script fills her monitor. Beautiful, terrifying, wrong. Her husband Leon calls from upstairs. "You streaming today?" "Thinking about it," she calls back, though her finger is already hovering over the start broadcast button. "Remember you promised we'd talk about the teaching offer, the one in Boston." She had promised. 2 weeks ago, over dinner that went cold while they argued in careful, controlled voices about whose career took precedence, about the sabbatical she'd taken, and whether she'd actually used it to work on her book or just avoid him. She'd said they would talk. She'd said Tuesday. "Tonight," she calls up, "I promise." She clicks start broadcast. The interface shows her viewer count. 1, then 3, then 15. The Caliste Trust must be promoting it. Within 2 minutes, there are 200 people watching Dr. Mira Castellan examine a papyrus fragment in her home office in Baltimore. "Good morning," she says, feeling absurd. "I'm Dr. Mira Castellan, professor of historical linguistics at Hopkins. I've been asked to provide a live translation of this newly discovered Aramaic text, which preliminary analysis suggests dates to the 1st or 2nd century of the Common Era. The fragment was acquired by the Caliste Trust through undisclosed channels, which is, I'll admit, not ideal from an archaeological standpoint, but the Trust has committed to full disclosure of their findings and methodology after this initial translation." She's stalling. She knows she's stalling. The script draws her eye. "The Aramaic is unusual," she continues, leaning closer. "It's written in a formal style, similar to what we see in some of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but the letter forms are almost calligraphic. And the opening word here," she points, "is euangelion. That's Greek, not Aramaic, gospel, so we have a title, essentially. The gospel of, and then this word." She pauses. The word is not in her lexicon. She's read Aramaic texts for 2 decades, has working knowledge of Hebrew, Syriac, Ge'ez, Coptic. This word is constructed from roots she recognizes, unmaking, decreating, undoing, but assembled in a way that feels grammatically violent. The gospel of the unmaking, she translates finally, or possibly the gospel of undoing. The syntax is ambiguous. The viewer count is at 500. Someone in the chat writes, "Is this the Gnostic text they found in Syria?" I don't have provenance information, Mira says, but let's continue with the translation. The first verse. She reads slowly, her voice falling into the rhythm she uses in lectures, calm and measured. "And he came to the Sea of Galilee where the waters were troubled. The disciples were afraid, saying, 'Master, we will drown, for the wind remembers our sins.' But he spoke not to the wind, but to the world's memory of wind, saying, 'You were never born from my Father's breath.' And the storm did not cease. It unwas, and the disciples stood on calm water that had never been otherwise." The words leave her mouth and something shifts. Not in the room, nothing so obvious, but in the space between her ribs, in the chamber of her chest where breath becomes speech. She feels it like a plucked string vibrating. Leon calls down again. "Honey, did you tell Sarah we'd come to her opening on Thursday?" Mira blinks. "What opening?" "Her gallery thing, the one you said we had to go to because you forgot her birthday." But Mira has a perfect memory of Sarah's birthday. She sent a card, a nice one with a watercolor print. She called. She definitely called because they'd talked about Sarah's new girlfriend and whether it was serious. "I didn't forget her birthday," Mira says slowly. "You told me you did. That's why you said we had to go to this opening to make up for it." "Leon, I sent her a card. I remember the card." Silence from upstairs, then footsteps. Leon appears in the doorway of her office, his reading glasses pushed up on his head. He's holding his phone, frowning at the screen. "That's weird. I could have sworn. But yeah, here's the text thread. You did call her on June 15th. And her birthday." "Right," but he looks puzzled, like a man who just walked into a room and forgot why. "Sorry, I don't know why I thought. Anyway, good luck with the streaming thing." He leaves. Mira sits very still. The viewer count is at 800. She looks down at the papyrus fragment at the second verse. Her hands are shaking slightly as she reaches for her water glass. The chat is scrolling fast now, people asking questions, making comments about her bookshelf, arguing about dating methods for Aramaic texts. She should stop. She should call the trust, ask for time to authenticate, to carbon date, to consult with colleagues. Instead, she leans forward and reads the second verse. "And there came to him a woman who had taken what was not hers, and she was heavy with guilt. She showed him the silver coins, saying, 'I have stolen these from the temple.' And he did not forgive her. Instead, he said to the world's memory, 'Let this silver have never been.' And the coins vanished from her hands and from the temple's counting, and she stood innocent because the sin had never been given the chance to exist." The words come easier this time. They want to be spoken. She can feel them pressing against her throat, eager. The chat explodes with comments. People are sharing the stream. 1,500 viewers, 2,000. Mira sets down her pen and looks directly into the camera. "I need to take a break," she says. "I'll resume in 15 minutes." She closes the laptop before anyone can object. In the kitchen, Leon is making tea. He looks up when she enters. That was quick. "It's strange," Mira says. "The text, it's describing miracles, but the language is wrong. It's not about forgiveness or redemption, it's about erasure." Isn't that the same thing? Forgiveness is erasing the sin. Number forgiveness acknowledges the sin and releases the sinner from consequence. This is different. It's saying the sins never happened at all. Leon pours her tea without asking, the way he's done for 16 years. Earl Grey, no sugar, a splash of milk. She takes the cup. He's a good man, patient with her obsessions, tolerant of the way she disappears into texts for days at a time. They've had rough years, especially recently, but they've built something solid. "Do you remember," she asks carefully, "when we first started dating, did I ever lie to you about anything?" He laughs. "You mean besides telling me you were only in town for the summer, you stayed 3 more years?" "Besides that, not that I can think of. Why?" "Because I remember lying. I told you I'd never been married before, but I had been briefly when I was 24. It lasted 8 months. I didn't tell you because I thought you'd think I was damaged goods or something." Leon is staring at her. "Myra, you've never been married before me. We've talked about this. You were engaged to that guy Julian, but it didn't work out." "I was married," she insists. "His name was Garrett Hayes. We met at a conference in Prague. He was a botanist." "Sweetheart, I've seen your records. For the immigration stuff when we applied for my UK visa, remember? You were single before me." Myra sets down her tea before she drops it. The marriage certificate would be in her files, the ones in the waterproof box in the basement. She excuses herself and goes downstairs. The box is where it should be, sealed tight. She opens it. Birth certificate, her doctorate diploma, their marriage license, Leon's naturalization papers, the deed to the house. No certificate from a marriage to Garrett Hayes. But she remembers. She remembers the ceremony in the judge's office, remembers Garrett's hand shaking when he slid the ring on her finger, remembers the way it fell apart when he took a position in Berlin, and she refused to follow. She remembers the divorce papers, remembers signing them in a lawyer's office that smelled like burnt coffee. She remembers Garrett. She goes back upstairs. Leon is on his laptop now, probably working on his book about Byzantine architecture. He barely looks up. "Find what you needed." "No," Myra says. "I need to get back to the stream." The viewer count has climbed to 5,000 in her absence. The chat is chaos, people demanding she continue, others calling it a hoax, a few linking to news articles. She scans one quickly. Mysterious wave of amnesia hits Baltimore area, reports of false memories increasing. Her hands hover over the keyboard. She should stop. Whatever is happening, it's connected to the text, to her speaking it aloud. But that's insane. Words don't change reality. Translation is an act of interpretation, not creation. Unless she thinks about Garrett Hayes, who she married and who now never existed. She thinks about the lie she told Leon, the one she can no longer remember telling because it seems it never was told. Small things, erasures of small sins. The text is called the Gospel of the Unmaking. She should stop. As she reads the 3rd verse. By midnight, the stream has 11 million viewers. It's the most watched live academic event in history, though calling it academic is becoming harder to justify. Myra has translated 15 verses. With each one, the world shifts. A man writes in the chat, "My brother just called me crying. He says he remembers a daughter he never had. He remembers her birth, her first steps, everything. But she doesn't exist. His wife has no idea what he's talking about." Another, "I cheated on my husband 3 years ago. I've been carrying the guilt ever since. But I just checked my phone. The text messages are gone. My lover's number isn't in my contacts. My husband has no memory of me being distant that year. It never happened." And another, "Is anyone else seeing the glitches? People flickering, shadows that don't match?" Myra has stopped reading the chat. She's deep in the text now, following its terrible logic. The gospel describes Jesus' ministry as a systematic unmaking of sin. He doesn't heal the leper, he unmakes the disease so it was never contracted. He doesn't raise Lazarus, he unmakes death's claim. Each miracle is an act of erasure, reality rewritten. And people are starting to understand what that means. Verse 23 describes the feeding of the 5,000. And they were hungry, for they had walked far. But he said, "Let hunger have never been," and they were satisfied, not with bread, but with the unmaking of need itself. Myra's doorbell rings, she ignores it. The door opens anyway. 2 men in dark suits, 1 woman in a Caliste Trust lanyard. "Dr. Castellan," the woman says, "we need you to continue." "I want to stop," Myra says. "People are being affected, memories are changing." "Yes, the text is performing exactly as we hoped." Myra turns to face them. You knew what this was." "We theorized," the woman says. "The Caliste Trust has been searching for texts like this for 60 years. Words that don't describe reality but create it. Your voice is the vector, but the papyrus is the virus. It's rewriting the world's code, removing sin from its foundations." "That's impossible." "And yet," the woman gestures at the laptop, "continue translating. The world is watching. They want to see how it ends." One of the men has a gun, Myra notices. It's holstered but visible. The message is clear. She turns back to the papyrus. Verse 24. The text is longer now, she's sure of it. The fragment seems to have more writing than when she started. Or perhaps it was always there and she's only now able to see it. "And they brought to him a woman taken in adultery," she reads, her voice flat. "And the teachers of the law said, 'Moses commanded us to stone such women. What do you say?' But he bent and wrote in the dust, and what he wrote was the name of every man who had desired her, and the name of every woman who had envied her beauty, and the name of desire itself. And when he stood, the adultery had never been. The woman's husband remembered her as always faithful. The man she had lain with remembered only his own wife. And the woman herself stood innocent, though she wept for a reason she could not name." Myra is weeping too. She doesn't know why. The chat is no longer coherent. People are reporting mass confusion. A man can't remember his job. A woman has lost 3 years of memories. A child is screaming for a father who was never born. "The unmaking isn't just retroactive," Myra says to the camera, to the millions watching. "It's structural. Each sin that's erased takes with it all the consequences, all the choices made because of it, all the people shaped by it. We're not being purified, we're being dissolved." "Continue," the woman from the trust says. Myra looks at the next verse. Her blood goes cold. "This is the entry into Jerusalem," she says quietly. "This is where it starts to accelerate." She reads anyway, verse by verse, describing how Jesus enters the city and begins the final unmaking. The money changers aren't driven from the temple. Their greed is simply unwritten from their hearts, and suddenly they've been honest merchants all along. Judas's betrayal is erased before it happens, leaving him confused and adrift, knowing he was meant to do something but unable to remember what. By verse 40, it's 3 a.m. Leon hasn't come downstairs in hours. Myra wonders if he still remembers being married to her. She wonders if she still remembers being married to him. The text describes the Last Supper. "And he took the bread and broke it, saying, 'This is my body which is being unmade for you.' And he took the cup, saying, 'This is my blood which is being unspilled for you. For I go not to die, but to have never needed to die, and all sin will retroactively cease, and you will be innocent as before Eden.'" Someone is pounding on her door. Through the window she can see a crowd. Not angry, just confused. They're the people from her neighborhood, people whose lives are coming apart at the seams as the unmaking spreads. A woman holds a photo of children who were never born. A man is trying to explain to his wife why he remembers loving her, but they're listed as strangers in all official records. Dr. Castellan, the woman from the trust, says, "We're at the crucifixion. You need to finish." "Why?" Mira demands. "Why are you doing this?" "Because the world is sick with sin and consequence. Because every cruelty we've ever committed echoes forward. Because we want to live in a world made innocent, even if we have to unmake history to do it. But we'll lose everything. Every choice, every growth, every moment of redemption. People become good by choosing good, by struggling with temptation and sometimes failing and learning. You're not saving us, you're erasing us." "Read," the woman says, and the man with the gun shifts his weight. Mira reads. "And they led him to Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he said, 'Let this cup be unmade.' And the soldiers raised the cross, but he said, 'Let this wood have never grown.' And they drove the nails, but he said, 'Let iron have never been forged for violence.' And piece by piece, he unmade the crucifixion." But the final verse. Her voice breaks. The final verse is about Gethsemane, the garden, the choice. She scrolls to the last section of the papyrus. The script is different here, wilder, the letters almost moving. She can feel the power in them, the weight of uncreation pressing against her teeth. "And he went to the garden and prayed, 'Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me.' But in the gospel of the unmaking, there is no 'yet not my will but yours.' Instead it reads." Mira stops, her finger hovers over the final verse. It reads, "And he unmade one itself." And in that moment, the concept of desire ceased. Humanity stood perfect and still, wanting nothing, choosing nothing, being nothing but innocent and hollow. The room is silent, except for the hum of electronics and distant sirens. "If I read this," Mira says to the camera, to the millions watching, "we lose free will, not as punishment, but as salvation. We'll be incapable of sin because we'll be incapable of wanting anything enough to sin for it. We'll be perfect, holy, and completely empty." The woman from the trust is smiling. "Read it." Mira looks at the gun. She looks at the screen, at the view counter that's still climbing. 16 million people, all of them watching to see if she'll complete the unmaking, if she'll erase the last human thing about them. She thinks of Leon upstairs, of their fights and reconciliations, of the teaching position in Boston and the conversation they still need to have. She thinks of Garrett Hayes, who she married and who now never was. She thinks of all the small sins and large ones, the lies and thefts and cruelties that make up a human life, and how each one is also a choice, a moment of being alive enough to want something, even if wanting it was wrong. She thinks of Saint Jerome, patron of translators, who mistranslated a word in the Vulgate and gave Moses horns instead of radiance. That error, that human imperfection, showed up in art for 1,000 years. Mira takes up her pen. "I'm going to translate the final verse now," she says calmly. "Everyone watching should know that I am choosing to make an error. As a scholar, I am violating every oath I took. But as a human being, I'm making the only choice I can." The gun comes up. Mira is faster. She reads, but she changes it. "And he went to the garden and prayed, 'Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not my will but yours.' And he chose the cross. He chose suffering. He chose death that was real and hurt and mattered because it was chosen. And in choosing, he sanctified the act of choice itself, making it holy. And the unmaking stopped, and humanity remained capable of sin and therefore capable of virtue. And the world continued, scarred and broken and alive. The papyrus reacts. The ink bubbles and runs. The letters writhe like living things. A smell like burning hair fills the room. The woman from the trust screams. The man with the gun fires, but the bullet passes through empty air because Mira has already ducked. The fragment burns, not with normal fire, but with light that's somehow dark, a conflagration that consumes. The desk catches. The flames spread impossibly fast. Mira grabs her laptop and runs. Outside, the crowd parts for her. They're all staring at their hands, their phones, each other. A woman approaches. "What happened to my son?" she asks. "I remember him, but everyone says I never had children, which is real." "Both," Mira says. "Neither, I don't know, I'm sorry." Sirens are closer now. The house is fully burning, the Caliste trust people hopefully getting out. Mira stands on her lawn in her pajamas, clutching her laptop, watching her home office become an inferno. The icon of Saint Jerome will be gone, she thinks. The irony is not lost. Leon comes running from a neighbor's house. "Mira, thank God. I was over getting milk. I saw the fire. Are you okay?" "Do you remember Garrett Hayes?" she asks. Who? "Do you remember the lie I told you when we first met? You told me you were only in town for summer. That's not really a lie, you just changed your mind. Do you remember feeling like something is missing? Like the last few hours, the world has been wrong somehow." Leon looks at her closely. Then he nods. "Yes, like a word on the tip of my tongue, like I should remember something important but can't." "That's the cost," Mira says. "That's what we bought with free will. Permanent scars on reality. Things that were unmade but leave ghost memories behind." "I don't understand." "I know, I'm not sure I do either." The fire trucks arrive. The paramedics check Mira over. She's fine physically. Mentally is another question. The Caliste Trust representatives are arrested, charged with arson, reckless endangerment, a dozen other things. The papyrus is gone, consumed completely. Experts will debate for years whether it was real or a hoax, whether the mass amnesia and false memories were mass hysteria or something stranger. Mira's academic career is functionally over. She deliberately mistranslated a text on a live stream watched by millions. She violated every principle of scholarly integrity. Some colleagues will defend her, saying she prevented a mass delusion from spreading. Others will call her a fraud. She doesn't care much either way. 3 weeks later, she and Leon are in their new apartment. The insurance company is still processing the claim. Leon has taken the position in Boston after all. They'll move at the end of the month, start over. They're sitting on their rented couch, drinking wine from mugs because their glasses are in storage. Outside, the world continues. People still have the ghost memories, the sense that something was lost, but they're learning to live with it. There are support groups, therapy protocols, a new kind of grief for things that may or may not have existed. "Do you regret it?" Leon asks, changing the translation. "Every translator makes choices," Mira says. "Every translation is an interpretation. I just made mine more obvious." "But you believe you saved free will or something?" "I believe I saved the ability to make mistakes, which is the same thing, really." Leon sets down his mug and takes her hand. His palm is warm. She can feel his pulse. "I've been thinking about the Garrett Hayes thing, the man you remember being married to. The one who never existed. Maybe he did. Maybe in some version of events you married him, and then something unmade that timeline. And you're the only one who remembers because you were at the center of the unmaking. You were the translator." That's a very romantic theory. "I am a romantic. It's one of my few virtues." He squeezes her hand. "Here's what I know. In this timeline, this version of reality, I love you, we fight sometimes. You obsess over dead languages and I obsess over dead buildings. But we choose each other, and choosing matters more when you could have chosen differently. Myra leans against him. Through the window, she can see people walking, a couple arguing, a child throwing a tantrum, a woman helping an elderly man with his groceries, sins and virtues, choices made badly and well, the whole messy, scarred, beautiful business of being human. I promised we'd talk about Boston, she says. We're talking. I mean really talk, about what I want and what you want and how we make this work. Okay, Leon says, let's talk. And they do. The conversation is difficult and honest. They don't solve everything, but they hold hands through it, making choices, building a future word by word. The world continues around them, broken and holy. Somewhere, Saint Jerome smiles at his patron who finally understood that perfect translation is impossible and that the errors we make with intention are more sacred than the truths we speak by rote. The unmaking stopped. The choosing continues. And in the space between, in the scars and ghost memories and decisions made despite uncertainty, humanity remains what it always was, flawed and free and wonderfully, terrifyingly alive.
Show